7:37, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Of course, that is John Rich, and he is one half of Big and Rich. And of course, he's been on this show many times. John, always great to have you on Nashville's Morning News. And there's so much that I want to talk about regarding the situation with the TVA. Now, the Tennessee Valley Authority, I want to play this audio right off the bat because it was this audio bite, John Rich, that really drew me to this story. This is a woman. She's an older lady. Her name, I believe, is the last name of Nicholson. And she was talking about what the TVA is trying to do on her property.
They're talking about putting those up.
Oh, I know what they are up here.
Yes.
You think you own something, you don't own nothing. I'm the only child, and I forget how many acres I got. I go to Spring Creek.
Do you have somebody who takes care of it for you?
Farms it.
Okay.
Well, that is, again, Miss Nicholson, and I know that, John Rich, you have been involved in this fight in Cheatham County. So I think some people probably know the story, others do not, but the TVA, which is federally owned, wants to put this big methane plant in the middle of the county. And as the accusation is, and as the story goes, they're showing up on people's property and just, the sense is that they're just kind of taking over. So, John, talk a little bit about what's going on. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I could hear you, man. You know how tech is these days.
I sure do. Okay, so you heard my intro, and I played the audio from dear Miss
Yes.
Nicholson. So tell me, first of all, you consider Cheatham County your home.
Yeah, so I was actually born in West Tennessee, and about 4 years old, we moved to Texas, where my dad is from, in Amarillo. And I grew up out there and then moved back to Tennessee, to Cheatham County, in my high school years. So I did most of my high school there in Cheatham County. My brother has a farm in Cheatham County. My dad has lived there since the late 80s. My granny Rich ran a business in Ashland City, Tennessee, till she passed away in 2020. So, yeah, I consider my roots deep down in Cheatham County. And as you covered in the beginning, the startling nature of what's going on in Cheatham County, I think, is something that TVA would never want to be discussed out in the open. Who knew that TVA could show up on someone's private property? This person's committed no crime. There's no warrant. They just show up, but they show up 10, 12 vehicles deep. They've got men with guns, bulletproof vests standing out in the yard. You talk about intimidating. I mean, almost like what the ATF might look like. Yeah. When they show up. The lady you mentioned, Miss Nicholson, she's almost 90 years old. And when the neighbors asked the TVA, who gave you permission to be here? They said, Mr. Nicholson gave us permission to be here. And they all started laughing and went, really, that's interesting, because Mr. Nicholson has been dead for longer than a decade.
Wow. And
so what you've got is intimidation tactics like I've never heard of before in the United States of America. Some of the quotes from the TVA is really interesting, how it runs a complete juxtaposition to what they're actually doing in real life. This is a quote: "Our goal is to not make people feel good about the power generation that may be in their community, but to be a good corporate citizen." That's their position.
Okay.
Well, here's another quote. Here's another direct one, Dan. Okay. One important thing about TVA is we are public power. We don't have shareholders. We have stakeholders. The American public owns TVA. Those are our shareholders. So this is their forward-facing comments, but what they're actually doing in the backwoods and the back roads is they're showing up with guns and bulletproof vests, and even fabricating why they have permission to be there. This is a big deal. It needs to be talked about. One thing most people don't understand is that the TVA only answers to the President of the United States. That's it. TVA was set up in 1933 by FDR, and it still kind of remains in that state where President Trump would be the only one to give them a directive, tell them no, tell them yes, fire someone, bring someone on. So they really operate with the ultimate federal authority when they're walking onto your land.
All right. So John Rich joining us. A few questions. So they want to put this big plant in the middle of Cheatham County. It is near or over the water supply. It's near a bunch of schools as well. And if you, because I did, I mean, if you Google these methane plants, if there's a leak or something like that, I mean, it could destroy the Cheatham County. I mean, it could get into the water supply, and it would just be very bad. And this property that they're talking about, is this partly their property and partly private property? Because I know that they bought, way back in 2020, they bought a couple hundred acres of property from, I don't exactly know who it was, but I know that back in 2020, there is a record that they did buy a couple of hundred acres of property. So why do they want to take over some of the property? It seems like they want to take over some of the private property of others.
So that's part of the little trick to all this. Yes, TVA does own a couple hundred or so acres in Cheatham County that they picked off under the Biden administration. But what happens is now you've got to go to all the surrounding houses. There's around, based on what we're calculating, around 450 houses in that general area. They got to run pipeline underneath your land. Okay. They got to run transmission lines over the top of your land. It doesn't just stay in that 200 acres. It affects everything around it. And yes, you're correct. There are 5 schools within 5 miles of where this plant would go. There's a big body of water there called Sycamore Creek. That's what supplies Pleasant View with 100% of their water, and supplies Aspen City with a large percentage of their water, to the tune of about 1.5 million gallons per day. So when you start looking at all this, listen, I've learned over time, it's one thing just to yell about something, but it's a lot better if you, yes, raise the awareness about it, but then say, what are the alternatives to this? Is there another way to do this to supply power to Davidson County? Well, I had a state senator reach out to me, State Senator Roberts, who represents Humphreys County. And he said, listen, John, we would welcome the TVA with open arms into Humphreys County, because we have a coal plant that was shuttered just in the last few years during Biden's war on coal. And he says a lot of our people lost their jobs, lots of people. We would like those people rehired. That plant can successfully be retrofitted to be a methane plant. And I said, has that actually happened? Has someone actually taken a coal plant and turned it into a methane plant? He said, yeah, in the agricultural world, it happens all the time. They successfully move them over to methane. It's a retrofitting. So there are options. So then that begs the question, if the open-facing statement of TVA is that the American public owns the TVA and they are the shareholders, why are you pulling up on their land with bulletproof vests and guns and shoving people around? Oh, by the way, here's the kicker. If you resist them and don't allow them to trespass on your land, guess what they do to you then, Dan? They drag you into a courtroom and they sue you. Now, this is the TVA and the subcontractors of the TVA. So the pipeline companies, the other companies that TVA works with will drag you into court and sue your pants off and make you go in there and defend yourself. And I'm not aware of anybody beating them in a courtroom at this point.
They have unlimited resources.
Correct.
All right. So the name Tennessee is, of course, in the name. The word Tennessee is in the name. But this is, as you mentioned, this is a federally owned organization, I guess. And yeah, you're right. It started back in 1933. But one of the things that you've said is that this isn't even power for Cheatham County. This is power for Davidson County and Nashville.
Right. So early on, this has been going on for a few years. Originally, it was no power for Cheatham County. TVA, I guess because the optics were so bad, they said, you know what, we're going to give Cheatham County one substation. So, yeah, you're going to be getting some power. I think that was to take away that part of the argument, that none of the power would go to Cheatham County. So, okay, we'll give you a little bit of power. Are you happy now? I mean, the audacity of it is unreal, and the hypocrisy of it, to see public relations people at TVA trying to convince everybody that, hey, we're here for you. We don't want to go anywhere we're not wanted. That's one of their famous phrases. We don't want to go anywhere that we're not wanted. Well, when people say, get off my land, I don't want you here, and then they look at a guy with a bulletproof vest and a pistol, and that guy responds to them and says, hey, you need to talk to your counsel when you're addressing us. Speak to your counsel. So on my X account, which is just at John Rich, if you go look, I've actually been going out there, I guess like investigative journalist style. I never thought that would. You
have. You know what? I'm going to tell you, I spent the morning with you interviewing all of these folks from Cheatham County.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just drive out to their yard. Listen, I don't want to cause a big ruckus if I'm not understanding the problem, or if the problem has been sensationalized and it's not really as bad as you think. So I said, I'm just going to drive out to the country and go talk to these people, find out what's going on. And brother, when you start digging into it and then you see the video, which right now is at the top of my X page, you play the audio, you will see 10, 12, 15 TVA vehicles, and you will see TVA agents with bulletproof vests and guns standing on old people's property and intimidating the hell out of them. And that's just not America. I mean, there's nothing American about that. I have not directly called the President of the United States yet about this, and I hope I don't have to. He's got some pretty big things going on right now he's dealing with. So I'm hoping this can be figured out here in Middle Tennessee. They should reach out to Senator Roberts, who represents Humphreys County.
Yep.
He said, open arms for the TVA in Humphreys County. We already have a pipeline going all the way to where you need it to go. We would love to see you guys turn this thing back on.
A bunch of folks lost their jobs too, John, back when they shuttered those plants.
Well, right. I mean, so basically what you've got now is holdover damage from the Biden administration still being acted upon under a new administration. I can't imagine Donald Trump, if he saw the video that you just played, if he saw those interviews with those people, that he would be okay with that. I mean, I've known him too long. There's just no way. His answer would be, there's got to be another way to do this. And then I would say, yeah, there is another way to do this. A couple of different ways, actually. Well, and I think he would be interested in looking at that.
Especially with his experience as a developer. Let me ask you this, John. The TVA actually has a board of directors. Right now, they only have a total of 4. You need 5 for a quorum. There's a total of 9. So there seems to be literally nowhere to turn to because the board of directors, apparently they can't do anything. I mean, you may have some input on this, but can they not do anything because they don't have a quorum right now?
I don't know if they can't do anything or not. I know that they can still send armed people with bulletproof vests onto your land without your permission. I know they can still do that.
Touché.
I know that they've still got forward-facing press people and public relations people out here doing everything from podcasts to social media posts, trying to tell everybody, hey, we're here for you. I mean, they're still operating like that. But you're right, Trump actually made a couple of big moves on them because of the way they were operating. I mean, they were operating under what the Biden administration's plans were, under their directives. And so now you've got Cheatham County in the crosshairs. Listen, when you talk about it from an ecological standpoint, you mentioned the water supply. You know, that's a huge, huge, huge deal. There's a lot of people moving into Cheatham County, Pleasant View, Aspen City. It looks like Nashville as far as the cranes. There's cranes everywhere. They're building up because everybody's moving to Tennessee from the U.S. So there's a lot of different reasons why this is a really horrible idea. But the strong arm tactics, Dan, does it sound like America to you? If somebody showed up at Dan Mandis's house without permission, with guns, bulletproof vests, and told you that if you don't allow them onto your property, they're going to drag you into court. Does that sound like America?
Nope, sure doesn't. And that's happening to people in Cheatham County. John Rich, I love that you're on this. And I know you're going to be on with, I think, Murphy Show later this week. So can you just keep us all informed, one show or another, on where this goes? Because I am genuinely interested to see how this whole thing plays out. By the way, in other news, I want to congratulate you. You have been named as the 2025 recipient of the Bob Hope Award as part of the 2025 Medal of Honor celebration that is going on. Congratulations. I mean, that's got to be huge for you.
Yeah, unexpected. Humbling doesn't begin to say how I feel about that. So the Medal of Honor recipients, they meet every year in Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. They said there's generally 50 to 70 sometimes of them that show up. And I guess just because of my love of the military, whether it be veterans or active duty or the families of those men and women, they thought, you know what, let's recognize John this year. And I said, I can't even believe this. So my family's going to go with me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I told my dad, I said, I don't ask you to travel to come watch me do stuff, but I'd like you to be at this one if you don't mind. And he said, man, what an honor. Absolutely, I'll be there. So thanks for bringing that up, man. I love our military and our veterans. I know we got a lot of them listening right now. Thank you for your sacrifice and your service. We just had the 81st anniversary of D-Day just a few days ago.
Yep.
And it's because of that sacrifice that we even get to have these arguments right now on the radio.
Well, John, thank you for what you're doing for the folks in Cheatham County. Thanks for what you do for the veterans, and we'll look forward to having you on again soon. John Rich, everybody, and truly, a great American and a great Tennessean. 754.